protest is like the highest form of democracy. It is what makes us American. In a lot of ways, that is how this country was founded. Historically speaking, I always start with the Boston Massacre. That's sort of the first reference point that a lot of my students have, is thinking about, this revolutionary moment and thinking about things like, the Boston Tea Party and protest and revolutionary slogans like give me liberty or give me death. When we think about riots, a lot of the riots that have taken place, certainly in the 19th century and the early 20th century, are all moments where white mobs have destroyed Black communities.
The Tulsa race riots of 1921 is a prime example. It targeted Black-owned businesses, and it was designed to keep Black people in their place, basically to reinforce Jim Crow segregation.
I'm thinking about the Chicago race riots. I was thinking about Red Summer. When we think about political and social change and who's been at the helm of trying to prevent it, white people have been fluent in violence.
As the 20th century progresses, the civil rights movement picks up on the heels of police brutality and allegations and concerns about police brutality and poor relations between police and the Black citizens of Los Angeles. The Watts riots erupted in 1965. And of course, throughout the 1960s, the long, hot summers of 1967, Martin Luther King's assassination in 1968, you saw a series of urban uprisings around the country, often triggered by police brutality, excessive use of force. 1992 Los Angeles is another example. You have the Rodney King beating that's captured on videotape. The videotape is hypermediated around the world. It was one of the first instances where we actually had video proof of what Black and brown people had been complaining about for generations. They moved the case to Simi Valley, which is a suburban enclave where a lot of the people who live there are police officers or police sympathizers. The jury is pretty much all white, and the officers are acquitted. And LA explodes a few hours later. Long-standing white supremacy, racial injustice, economic oppression, underdevelopment of communities. There are all these structural strains over the years that build up pressure and tension that literally explode.
When the Black Lives Matter movement got started and Colin Kaepernick took a knee, that was an opportunity. That was a moment in which people were offering up nonviolent protest as a way to start the conversation. I mean, people went crazy and football became intensely political. This man's not giving a middle finger to the flag. When we look at Black people who are protesting and we say, this is un-American, it just only reiterates ideas that Black people are indeed second-class citizens and that their treatment will always be different from their white counterparts. Now the days of kneeling are over.
We're so focused on the symptoms and individual activities and actions of people who are participating that we miss the underlying causes that drove people to the streets in the first place. And so the authorities, of course, are invested in playing this up. And often you hear language about people destroying their own communities, which of course implies that they actually control or own anything in their communities. In fact, part of their critique was, we don't own our communities and we don't own the business in our communities. And the businesses are exploiting us with inflated prices and inferior goods and all those types of things. We ought to be asking the question, what is it that prompts people to take to the streets and to literally put their lives at risk in the middle of a pandemic?
What we're all here for, what all Black people are here for, is the death of George Floyd and the death of Breonna Taylor and the death of Ahmaud Arbery. This is not about the destruction of property. This is about